So at the end of 2021, I got a parking fine for $352 that essentially would cost me a whole week of wages. Fast forward to the end of 2024, I've been able to scale businesses past 200K a month. I've worked with 300 plus clients ranging from a couple hundred grand a year to 100 mil a year, and basically had the opportunity to look inside all these businesses, work with them, help them scale up and all these types of things. So throughout that process, I've been able to learn not only what it takes to succeed personally, but also what it takes to succeed in a business sense in terms of leadership, management, all those things that you really have to know as a young person, as an old person, whatever. But in this video, I'm not gonna brush it up and make it sound prettier than it is. My goal is to just bring you real advice that's been tried and tested in the field. It's not some bullshit Lambo guru type stuff. This is just what I've learned from doing exactly what I've done, nothing more, nothing less. So ideally, you can walk away with some key takeaways you can implement straight away, and pretty much just take what you like, get rid of what you don't like. If it's helpful, great. If not, that's totally cool. I know there's a lot of people that might have scaled up faster than me or done more than me at my age or whatever it may be, but I'm absolutely certain the insights I'm gonna give in this video will be immediately actionable, because I absolutely hate when you watch some guru BS that just kind of sucks and it's just milky, diluted stuff. So that's my goal, to not do that. If I mess it up, let me know. First things first, I wanted to give you a bit of an insight into how I got here, just a quick overview. So number one, I was always the type of guy that in school, I was obsessed with studying. I was obsessed with just doing generally well in different things. And it wasn't as much of one of those, highlight stories where you hear someone's like, they're just absolutely excellent and they've got these great goals, they're super ambitious, etc. It was probably more one of those things where I just felt anxious if I wasn't doing everything that I possibly could to get, quote unquote, good results. Like for example, I remember I was at like an under 12s basketball tryout, and everyone was getting forced to do these kind of like defensive slides, or like essentially what would be suicides, except you have to be in a squatted position to do them. And everyone was getting forced to go around. There's like 150 11-year-olds just running around this basketball court. And then at the end, the coach brings everyone in. It's about to give us a massive roast. And he's just yelling at everyone, that was terrible, that was shit, yada, yada, yada. And then he pointed at me and said, the only one that did this right was you. And I was like shitting myself. I was like, oh my God, like I'm about to get called out. I was already so nervous going into like the tryout, because I just wanted to, I don't even know. It wasn't that I wanted to win, it was that I didn't want to lose. So that when he was pointing at me, I was like freaking out, and I was like, oh shit, like what's going on? And I don't bring that story to you to say, again, it's not as much of a ambition and real passion and just like, I want to be here and all that sort of stuff. It's more just running away from this kind of fear of not being elite or not being A+ in everything. But however, even with that, going into year 12, which is like the final year of schooling, I was studying really hard for my exams, but I ended up missing my course to get into my ideal law degree at the school I wanted to go to by 0.3%. So I ended up getting a 96.7. I needed a 97 to get into the thing I wanted to. As a result, what ended up happening was I went into the uni that was like just below the one that I wanted to go to. And then I was gonna try and get my grades up so I could transfer into the one that I wanted. But once I got to the uni, I just absolutely hated it. So I was there for about 6 months. I went there for a semester, then ended up dropping out. So around that time I was in uni, it was about 2021 to 2022. It was kind of like a crypto bull run at that point. So what I was doing, this is my ideal method of making money without, giving up too much time. I was just door dashing, specifically for the reason that you couldn't do Uber on your like P plates. So I had a beginner license, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do some DoorDash. I'm gonna throw that money in Luna. We're gonna be rich. This is gonna be my ticket out. This is gonna be my financial freedom. Completely sorted, all done and dusted at the age of what would be 18, 19. Unfortunately, if you know anything about Luna, you'll know that it went through probably one of the most famous, quote, death spirals of the last couple of years in the financial space, where it had reached, I think, like a multi-billion-dollar market cap. It was a huge coin. It was in the top 10. And then essentially the founder was kind of like, the technology of the coin was messed up. So what happened was it ended up going to zero. So I had my whole bag in here, made all my money in here. I think I made my first 10, 20K in there, and then it pretty much went to zero in the span of like 2 days. So as you can imagine, I'm in the uni course that I don't really want to be in. I hate it, and I've just lost probably 3/4 of my net worth in 2 days that I just really had really believed that this was going to be my ticket out. Wasn't the most ideal situation to be in. Looking back, there were some good lessons in being able to think, you know, you've just lost 3/4 of your net worth doing probably what isn't the most stable business model that you could potentially be in. But again, the lesson that I got from that was that, you know, I'm in the kind of the worst state that I've been in a couple of years at this point. The day that I basically just lost all my money. And I remember just writing down to myself, like almost in a journal kind of format, is this gonna be the end of the world? Like, is the sun gonna come up tomorrow? Am I ever gonna recover from this in terms of how I feel? And obviously the answer to that was yes. I know I'm gonna recover. Like, of course I'm upset, but I know I'm gonna recover. And the question I asked myself at that point was, if you're gonna recover someday, like why would that day not be tomorrow? Like why would that day not be today? Why can't you just choose to be okay today? And it sounds like it's kind of arbitrary, or it sounds like one of those things where like, you know, of course, just solve depression. Like, thanks for that one, bro. But it kind of is that way where you kind of make that decision. And I didn't know that that was a possibility before that day where I just lost all my money, had a terrible day, terrible couple of days. I didn't know it was possible that you could kind of control how you felt about these kinds of things. I sort of just previously had been a victim to the external circumstances I was in. Anyway, moving on, eventually I made my way back up, working my retail job, working, you know, as a tutor and things like that while I was in uni. But it got to the point where I was just sick of it so badly that I ended up just saying, look, I'm gonna go on a gap year. I'm gonna quit uni. I don't even think I told my parents. I was just like, look, I'm gonna go to Europe, go figure stuff out before I keep studying, because I just didn't like it. It was kind of at the point where I tried my best. I tried to try. It wasn't as if I didn't enjoy studying. It wasn't if I wasn't studious. I really pushed myself in the first couple of weeks of uni, the same way I had done at basketball, football, school, all these things. Like, I'd always tried my best, but I couldn't have that same feeling where I was running away from something or trying to be great at uni, because there was just no incentive there. And the reason for that, I think, was at school or in basketball or in football, whatever it may be, even in crypto or business, there's a very clear correlation between what you put in and what you get out. But when I was at uni, the times where I was working really hard and the times where I wasn't working hard, there was absolutely no difference at all. For example, first couple of weeks of uni, I was kind of nervous. I was like, you know, I've got to get my bearings, get things under control, work pretty hard. Then I started tapering off and just saying, you know, what's going to happen? What happens if I don't work that hard? What happens if I don't do anything? All these types of things where I just wanted to see. Eventually, I realized there was absolutely no difference between when I was trying my ass off and not trying at all, to the point where I had two subjects that were pretty much the same. One was psychology, one was a health-based subject, and they both had an essay that was about the same thing. So I ended up writing more or less the same essay for the two subjects, submitted them both, basically 99% the same, and then I figured out, oh shit, you're actually not allowed to do that because they have a database that checks you for plagiarism. And it gave me a big red flash that was like, no, hey, fuckwit, you can't actually submit two essays that are the exact same, because as soon as I submitted the first one, it went into their plagiarism database and basically said, this essay has been taken, it's been done before. So when I submitted the second one, it was like, hey, you've just copied someone's work. Just because it was my name that was in the database under the first one, it still came out as like, hey, this is 99% plagiarized. So I was freaking out. I was like, oh shit, this is terrible. I'm screwed, because I looked up what's the punishment for plagiarism. And it pretty much came out that I was going to be expelled. So I was like, all right, well, that's pretty bad. Don't do that. A couple hours passed. I was thinking, you know, what am I going to do? Eventually, I just got to the point where I would say, I'm just gonna unsubmit it and pretend it never happened, and then resubmit it after the due by date and just take the 10% docking that, you know, you get a punishment for submitting it late. And eventually I pretty much just escaped expulsion. Number one, I didn't work hard at all, fucking bludged this essay. Number two, I submitted 100% plagiarized essay that was worthy of expulsion. And then number three, I got away with all of it, and I was just like, this is a complete waste of time because I didn't do anything. It's like I was just messing around. I didn't feel that pressure like I did before to get results and to perform at the level that I knew I probably could. So like I said, that all led me to basically just wanting to drop out, try to do something else. But I didn't know what that would be at the time, because I kind of just didn't, you can't really see the path. When you're at uni, you're doing these things, you don't really know what you're gonna do next. I just knew it wasn't for me. I had this gut feel that I had to go in this direction and that it would be the right. So I went off to Europe, took a gap year, and gave myself 3 weeks to get a client for something. Because at this point I'd started, you know, consuming some YouTube, watched my Iman Gadzhi, SMMA videos, saw some Tai Lopez here and there, saw some, you know, Andrew Tate style stuff that would say, you know, you got to break out of the matrix, all that kind of thing. And that was kind of the initial way that you break into the space, and then you start getting deeper and deeper into the internet marketing kind of thing, and you learn really, really quickly. But like I said, got my first client in the door, and the rest was really history. I'd already had some sales experience from you know, working a job and things of that nature. So I wasn't too worried. I just kind of got in and started selling. I think my first client was email marketing or something stupid like that. Eventually I just kind of got into sales and doubled down on that, specifically for the reason that I knew if I was going to leave uni, I would need some pretty consistent income, and I leaned more towards having a job in the space rather than, starting out and trying to run a business with essentially zero experience. And that ended up really well for me. Pretty much the sequencing was, I got that client, I realized I should probably just get a job, ended up getting a sales job, worked in that, sold a bunch of different stuff, coaching, agency stuff, sold an AI, sold some software stuff, high ticket, low ticket, pretty much everything. So I got a really broad range, and that was specifically doing outbound sales and inbound sales. So again, just kind of crammed as much experience as I could, because at this point, that kind of anxiety that I would have to get results and make sure things were going well, that had really started kicking in, because all of a sudden you get the family start looking at you. Hey, I thought you were doing law. Like, what are you doing? Like, because again, I didn't even tell them I was dropping out of uni. Hey, what are you doing over there? Like, what's going on? So I was just like, all right, we got to make this work. We got to get something going here. So I was just cracking the whips, getting things done. And eventually in my sales job, I kind of just got to the point where I thought I could do more. I was starting to look at the sales process and think, I reckon you could improve this here. What if you sent them this pre-call? What if you use this as the ad? What if you framed it this way? And I kind of just started getting a feel for it and started to get my grips a little bit. And I really wanted to push the envelope. So what I did was I started partnering with B2B companies, so like business to business, doing sales, getting clients, content, outreach, paid ads, all of these kinds of things where I would just look at their business and try and figure out how we're just gonna blow this up. Like, we need to go and just blow it up. And that was kind of my business model. Obviously it wasn't that scalable looking back, but it was one of those things where you get so much experience in such a small amount of time. And we actually did get some great results. We scaled pretty consistently to 50 to 100K a month added for other people's companies. And I was, making some good money there too in that range. So it wasn't as if I was too mad about it, just coming from essentially one year prior to that, I was in uni. And then within about a year, I'd already worked with a shit ton of companies, sold a lot of different stuff, and experienced a lot of different skills in that process, to where I was getting to the point where I really had a grip of things. As you can imagine though, I was getting pretty entrenched in probably about 5 to 10 businesses, where probably similar to what Hormozi used to say, where he was trying to do 9 businesses at once, or he's trying to do all this different stuff, had no focus, no ability to kind of focus in and kind of stick to one thing. That was 100% me. So I was getting really spread thin, and I kind of got to the point where I was like, I think I should probably just focus on something that's a little bit more productized, a little bit more scalable. Because again, at the start, my advice, and I said this in a previous video, but my advice is very much you need to just go, don't think about anything. You need to get money in the door, you need to get revenue, you need to get skills, you need to get experience, you need to get network. All that stuff is the number one priority. Then once you can kind of get your first 100K in the door, get your savings up, get your cash flow up, then you can really look up and think, all right, what am I doing? Where am I going from now? So this was about where I was at that point. Decided pretty much that I should focus in on either one thing, one client, or one kind of offer, get a little bit more scalable and start really looking to push the envelope a bit. And that's when I actually met my business partner. So Matt Larson, met him at a mastermind, ended up pitching him on running a consulting company. He ended up saying yes. As you would know if you've been watching the channel, that's been doing pretty well. Ended up working with a bunch of clients through that, helped them make a shit ton more money as a result. And that process has been super fun. Since then, I think we launched 1000X in about February. I've basically been maintaining the Done For You stuff, doing a bit of consulting, working really closely with the clients from 1000X leads. And like I said, maintaining the Done For You stuff as well. So I'm still in the trenches myself. Still got equity in a few agencies, work really, really closely with some other clients as well in terms of coaching, in terms of the finance space as well. So, as you can imagine, it's a pretty busy life in the last couple of years since I got that parking ticket in 2021. That wasn't necessarily like one of those things where I magically snapped into gear and I thought, I got to start being an entrepreneur now that I got that parking ticket. But it definitely gave me that kind of anger and that rage and that frustration that I knew. I was like, this is just wrong. Like that was the only thing I was thinking, this is just wrong. How can I be working my retail job? I just finished my exams. How can I just get a week of my wages just zapped? Because I was sitting grabbing a coffee. Literally, I was there for 2 minutes, parked the car, ordered the coffee. I'm standing there waiting for the coffee. Then my car got towed. And the guy's there like, hey bro, it's gonna be a $350 fine. I was like, oh my God, it's over for me. So since then, been quite busy, but it's also been really, really fun, really, really fruitful. And yeah, that's pretty much the quick overview. So in terms of what you can actually take away from this right now, the absolute biggest thing that I think is relevant for people that, whether you've already scaled up pretty hard, whether you're more on the beginner side, it actually doesn't matter. But the thing you have to keep in mind is you are not gonna be able to stick to a plan unless you have some level of conviction that it's gonna actually work. And unless you can constantly constantly zoom out and say, I am doing the right thing. Like I said, I've worked with a lot of companies, all varying ranges. And if you're constantly doing things where you might do some outreach for a couple of months, or you do some paid ads for maybe 1 month, and then you try and see that it's gonna work, and you're kind of just constantly trying to, it's not necessarily shiny object syndrome, but it's just living in this state of fight or flight where you're quite anxious all the time because you haven't picked a strategy, you haven't picked a plan, which means that you're kind of constantly reacting to all these different things where you're like, oh my God, my outreach didn't get responses, my ads didn't land straight away, my content isn't getting views, all this stuff that if you've already been there and done that, you look back and think, well, of course your content didn't get views, you didn't do it properly, or of course your outreach didn't get too many responses, you only sent 100 of them. It's easy to say that looking back, but when you're actually in the moment and you're trying to get all these things going, it's really easy to, again, be in that reactive state where your day-to-day results seem like they're going poorly, but in reality, it's just because you haven't chosen a plan and stuck to that plan, and you haven't understood, in terms of your mental framing around that plan, that you are gonna have to stick to it for 3 to 6 months to really get anything to work. So when you don't have that, it's really easy to make emotional decisions. It's really easy to kind of make knee-jerk pivots to and fro and say, you know, maybe my offer needs to change. Maybe I need to do this platform. Maybe I need to do this. And what that eventually leads to is just running around in circles and getting absolutely nothing done. And that is a really fast way to waste years of your time. So in terms of the actionable item there, is if you don't have a clear strategy for what you're gonna do in the next 3 to 6 months, whether that means you're gonna roll out a new offer, a new acquisition channel, whether that means you're gonna start paid ads, whatever it may be, if you don't have that in place, you absolutely must, number one, get that in place. Number two, validate that the plan is something you can believe in and that you can buy into, and agree to yourself that you are not gonna pivot for at least some sort of agreed upon amount of time for it to actually work. Because again, it might sound like a trivial thing, but if you're constantly jumping around and being reactive, you're absolutely screwed. You're gonna run around in circles and it's gonna cost you so much time. The second big takeaway that I want you to take away is that when you're running a business or you're trying to really accelerate beyond what you're currently capable of, which is certainly what I've done in the last couple of years, is really just constantly try and become better and more elite and more skilled and better at all this stuff. It's almost like you end up purging traits from yourself. And I'll explain what I mean. For example, if you're someone who's naturally more erratic, so again, if you're someone who's naturally quite reactive, maybe a little bit impatient, a lot of those times, if you have these traits that are naturally built into yourself, you're gonna reach a level in your business or a level in your career where you can carry those traits. And then there's gonna be a point where if you keep making these impulsive decisions, if you keep exhibiting these negative traits, you just won't be able to scale. You'll just hit a point, and I see this all the time with myself, I see this all the time with other people, but you'll scale up really quickly to a certain benchmark, and then for whatever reason, you don't always know what it is at the time, but you won't be able to push past that. It's like there's a roof in front of you, like an invisible hand that prevents you from pushing past that. A lot of times, that's the fact that you need to purge traits, beliefs, you need to add a new skill set, or you'll need something that can give you that momentum to break past that next level. So again, when you're approaching these different growth periods and plateau periods, it's a really good thing to be able to understand, do I need to purge a trait? Do I need to get rid of something? Do I need to add something? Do I need to do more of something? And really look at these things objectively, because when you can identify these constraints, whether that means you look at yourself and say, am I the bottleneck here? Is it someone on my team? Is it a skill set? Is it that my stats aren't that good? When you can identify those things, you'll grow and then you'll hit that plateau. But the faster you can realize, okay, bang, that's the problem. Let's solve that. Let's rapidly attack that problem, that thing that's holding us back. It basically just starts being like whack-a-mole, where you just kind of, something pops up, smack it down. Something pops up, smack it down. And again, whether that means maybe you're a more erratic person, more emotional person, maybe you have a tendency to not be able to stick to a routine and things like that. They're just things that you will either get rid of and you'll become better, you'll become greater, or you'll be stuck at a certain point until you end up getting rid of that. So you really have to look at it from the perspective of, how can I become so great that it's inevitable that my business would be super awesome, like, best business ever. But that doesn't come unless you can consistently purge those traits, if that makes sense. Number 3, and this is the final one that I'll leave you with, but it's 2 of my favorite phrases that I've ever heard. One of them is from my older brother. Another one is from, I don't even know who, but I'll give it to you in a second. The first quote is, if you're cold, put some pants on. And it sounds completely stupid. You'll be like, oh, come on, like, what does that even mean? But the reason that I like it so much is because so often you'll be sitting in a freezing cold room, wearing no pants, wearing no jumper, and you'll be like, damn, I'm cold. And any objective person that's looking at you from the outside will be like, yeah, no shit, you're cold. You're not wearing any pants. So the reason that I look at that phrase and it resonates so much is because so often, not only is it so obvious to everyone around us what you need to do, but it's also very obvious to yourself what you really need to do in order to scale, or in order to get the next level, or in order to get to the next thing that you want. And the reason I say that is because, number one, it's really easy to give yourself excuses that you don't know how to do this thing, or you don't know where to go for this thing, or you don't know what to do, or you've got whatever reason that you need to delay the thing you need to do. Because the brain is really good at coming up with reasons why you shouldn't do the real thing that you have to do. The brain's awesome at that. So that quote, "If you're cold, put some pants on," kind of just acts as a reminder to me that, you want to deserve these results. You want to earn these results. You want to get to the point where everything that you've got is completely earned. You've done everything that you have to do to get that result. And then you can just bask in the result, compared to, sitting in the lounge room, freezing cold with no pants on. And everyone's like, "Mate, what are you doing?" And that brings me to the second point, which is kind of similar, but it's that the first rule of investing is not to lose money. And again, it's super obvious, and it's, of course, like, yeah, duh, don't lose money. Duh, don't go outside in the cold with no pants on. But it's just a safeguard, because working with all these clients, talking to all these different people, it's so common that you know the exact thing, the exact 2 to 3 things that you can look in your business and say, if I do this, this is gonna have a monumental impact on my business. You know what those things are, and you wake up every day and you magically find, I've got to respond to that Slack message. I'm quote unquote putting out fires. I'm building this system. I'm building this SOP. I'm looking at this different niche. Or I've got to consume this course before I do that. In reality, all that's bullshit. There are 2 to 3 core actions. Don't lose money, put your pants on, do your outreach, whatever it may be. And if you don't know what those things are, then you just figured out what your task is. Because if you don't know what that strategy is, that's the thing that's going to drive you forward is getting that strategy in place. So again, the reason I like those dumb, obvious quotes is just because it displays that it's so simple. It's just a matter of purging all these negative traits. It's a matter of overcoming the mental resistance that you have for these things, and just fucking brutally attacking the problems that you have, whether that's internally, that you have this mental resistance towards taking an action, obviously externally, if it's something in your business where it's like, all right, got to improve the close rate, we've got to improve the lead to booking rate, or whatever it may be. That is the single most actionable thing I could tell you. When there is something that you must do in your business, write it down and just do it now. Literally become the type of person that has urgency towards their problems. If you are cold, put some pants on. If you are investing, don't lose money, don't make stupid mistakes, and just constantly conquer yourself, and your business will be way better for it. And again, I don't want this to come from the frame of this guy doesn't even deal with these things, because absolutely, I still have to tell myself, I have to wake up and tell myself, do it now, feel urgency, stop wasting time on these things. And you constantly catch yourself, why were you responding to that Slack message when you were meant to be doing deep work? Why were you doing that? Snap out of that, that's stupid, don't do that. And again, that's what I mean when I say you're literally just conquering yourself and, slapping your own hand when you reach for the chips, because there's no one else that's gonna, slap you away from the chips. There's no, training wheels and things of that nature. So it's on you to be able to constantly just go up to different levels and keep transcending, or you can plateau until you get those things figured out. Either way, you'll figure it out in the end. But that's pretty much all I had for this video. So I hope it was helpful. If it was a waste of your time, let me know in the comments. Feel free to lambaste me. I'll see you in the next one.